I sometimes get asked, how do I adjust the pitch on my La-Z-Boy rocker recliner? I'm going to show you that today, and I'll also explain why making this adjustment is not usually helpful. Let me start by defining the chair pitch for those who are not familiar. When I talk about the pitch, I'm referring to the lean of the chair. If it's leaning back, the chair is said to be pitched back. If it's leaning forward, the chair is pitched or leaning forward. So when I'm talking about changing the pitch of the chair, I'm referring to how it's balanced and whether it's leaning forward or back when you first sit down. And of course, when you want to change the lean or balance, you adjust the pitch. This adjustment involves changing the position of where the rocker springs attach to the base and rocker block. The newer La-Z-Boy springs, like this one, are universal. You can attach the same spring to either side of the chair, or you can turn it upside down to install it as well. It doesn't matter. On older La-Z-Boys that have a metal retaining pin at one end of the spring, these should be installed with the pin closer to the front of the chair. To learn more about why that's important, see the video, The Recliner Tip-Over Problem. Okay, let's take a look at how these are installed. The rocker spring, as shown here, is normally attached to the floor base and rocker block by installing Torx head screws into pre-drilled holes in both the base and the block. There are 3 different mounting holes in the spring for each screw, and a total of 6 screws that attach each spring, 3 on the rocker block and 3 on the floor base. It's important to note that all screws on both springs should be installed using the same mounting hole. If I start by installing new springs with the center hole here, all the rest of the screws on both springs should be installed the same way. And that's exactly how most of these springs come from the factory, like this one. I call this the neutral position. Now, let's say your feet don't reach the floor and you want to adjust the pitch of the chair to bring the front down closer to the floor. Or maybe the chair is pitched forward too much and you'd like to have it pitched back a little. This is where the other mounting holes on the spring come into play and where these pitch adjustments are made. Here's how it works. If we move the spring forward toward the front of the chair, the pitch of the chair will tilt back a little. And take note, all we're doing here is using the holes on the back of the spring to mount the screws instead of the center hole. If we move the springs back toward the back of the chair pitch will dip down toward the floor a bit. And again, all we're doing here is using the holes beside the center hole to move the spring forward or back. And be sure when you change the position that you mount the screws all in the same fashion. For instructions on how to remove the springs and reposition them, see the video Rocker Springs and Base Removal. For those of you thinking, great, I can get my feet to reach the floor again. Not so fast. I always caution people that want to do this adjustment because the resulting change in pitch that you get when you move the spring forward or back is minimal. It's small. In fact, it's so small that many people will not notice any difference. But there is a slight difference, and I measured it the last time I did this adjustment here at the shop for one of my customers. I measured the distance from the bottom of the footrest to the bench before the adjustment was made, and again afterward. The result? The distance changed by about 1/2 inch. So you can change the pitch by 1/2 inch in either direction depending on which way you move the spring. So again, it's a very small adjustment. So, can you get your feet back on the floor if they were not close to touching? Not likely, but there is something else you can try that I'll get to in a minute. Now, there is one scenario where you can make a larger pitch adjustment, but it requires 2 things. First, that your springs are already installed toward the front or back, and not in this center or neutral position. And along with that, the adjustment you want to make needs to be in the opposite direction of the current chair pitch or lean. So if the spring is at one end of the adjustment holes and you want to move it to the other end, you're making a larger adjustment that should be noticeable. Now, as I mentioned, some people will have an issue with their feet not reaching the floor. And that may have to do with whether the chair fits them properly. See the video, How to Buy the Right Recliner, for more on that subject. But let's say your feet did just reach the floor when you bought the chair, but now they don't. Okay, well you can try the adjustment mentioned in this video, or you can add some padding to the lumbar area of the inside back. And here's why that'll help. What often happens is this padding breaks in, and as a result, you start sitting further back on the seat, lifting your feet off the floor in the process. I'll address restuffing back padding in another video. Let's wrap this video up by asking the question, what if you have too much backward pitch no matter how you adjust the rocker springs? The answer? See the video, The Recliner Tip Over Problem, for more on that subject.